Hi, everybody, and welcome. We will get started in just a minute, but I first wanted to introduce myself. My name is Serena, and I work for the San Francisco Bay Bird Observatory, SFBBO. And we are joined today by Judy, who has been working with us this year. She is currently volunteering, so thank you for being here. And we also want to thank the Bay Area Science Festival, our moderator and our tech support for being here to help make sure that everything goes well. We also, of course, want to thank them for having us with this activity. And we do want to say that anytime during this event, if you have any questions, if you want to share your observations or any comments, you can type those into the chat window. You're also welcome to go ahead and raise your hand, and Judy will help make sure that we call on you. Sound good? All right, so we can go ahead and get started. So we're here today because we did a bird scavenger hunt this week. So hopefully most of you were able to participate, but if this is the first you're hearing of it, that's okay too. So if you can tell us in the chat if you saw, a really good bird. So it could be your favorite bird or a bird that you've never seen before, or just a bird that you saw doing something cool. So if you saw your best bird, if you want to share that, go ahead and type that into the chat window. Seeing turkey vulture, that's awesome. That's a really cool bird to see. All right. As people, oh, and I see acorn woodpecker. Those are awesome. They're so funny looking. I always love seeing acorn woodpeckers. They're so charismatic. I feel like they're just really funny birds. Ooh, American coot is also a good one. Kind of like water chickens. Not quite ducks, but they're very cool birds.
Water chicken, that's a good way to describe them, Serena.
Yeah. Okay, so a little bit about us in case you weren't able to join us on Wednesday for our opening event. If you're not familiar with us, we are a nonprofit organization, and we're focused on conserving birds and their habitats through science and outreach. So we do a lot of research on birds. We're monitoring them in the environment here in the Bay Area. And we're also doing events like these where we're educating the community and we're doing fun activities. So hopefully you enjoy our cute little snowy plover picture here. That's a little chick, and that is a threatened species here, and that they are one of the species that we focus on helping to protect. So if you want to learn more about us or about any of these birds, then you can go ahead and check out our website, sfbbo.org. We'll show that at the end as well. Ooh, you saw a lot of pelicans as well. We have two species of pelicans here. There's the American white pelican and the brown pelican. They're both really huge birds and really cool to see. All right, so we do want to show you our scavenger hunt. So if you have not seen this before, you can find this on our Bay Area Science Festival page or on our registration page on our website. So if you completed these, hopefully you wrote down what day you saw them, and hopefully you answered some of these questions that we have on here. So I'm going to just share a poll to see, how many of these you might have been able to see this week and how many of the questions you answered. So if you can take a few seconds to answer the poll, that should just have popped up on your screen. So we have 3 questions. The first is, how many of the scavenger hunt's bird species or behaviors did you see? So we have 15 of them here. How many of those? All right, looks like I got muted there for a second. But yeah, so our first question is, how many of the bird species or behaviors of the 15 that you saw? The second one is, how many of the questions on there did you answer? And our third one is, which apps did you use this week? So on our first day, we shared some resources for some great apps to help learn how to identify birds and their bird calls. So we're curious about how many of those you've actually used this week. And it's okay if you haven't used any too. Maybe you are already really good at identifying the birds that you saw, or maybe this is the first time you've heard about these. So they are great resources. And if you weren't able to join us for our first event, I can share those resources with you after. We just ask that you register with us on our registration page, because that will allow us to have your contact information, and you'll also be entered to get a sticker from us. So I'll put that link into the chat in case you haven't seen it. This is our registration page that is a little bit separate from the Bay Area Science Festival one. But again, it lets us know how to contact you. So you can go there and register with us if you haven't done that already. All right, so I am going to give another 5 seconds or so for the poll, and then we'll go ahead and share those results. Ready? 3, 2, 1. And okay, here we go. So we had most people saw 1 to 5 species. That's awesome. And we had someone see all 15. Wow. And for anyone who hasn't seen these birds or bird behaviors yet, it's not too late. You can always go out to enjoy birds. There are so many of them out there. No matter where you are, you're bound to see them. We had someone answer all 15 questions on our scavenger hunt. That's awesome. Again, these are all questions you can answer without even seeing the birds. You can kind of think about, why is the bird doing what it's doing? And then we had people use the Audubon Bird Guide, iNaturalist. And again, if you haven't used any of these yet, maybe try to check them out if you have a chance. So we'll go ahead and stop this, and we will go over our scavenger hunt birds and the questions. So again, if you saw anything related to these birds that you want to share with us, go ahead and type those out or raise your hand so Judy can call on you. And we'll go over the answers to these questions too. So the first bird on our scavenger hunt was the black Phoebe. So I'm kind of curious to know, how many of you knew what a black Phoebe was before? Is it the first time you've seen it? So go ahead, and if you want, you can share anything about this bird that you thought about or any questions you have. And again, you can type in the chat window. And if anybody had any questions or any thoughts about the answer to this question, go ahead and let us know. So we'll wait for a few seconds to see if anyone wants to share. So nobody yet, right? But our question on our scavenger hunt was, to watch the behavior of Phoebes, because they often sit on a perch and then they fly away for a few seconds and then they return to that same perch. So what might they be doing when they are just flying away and coming back? Does anyone have any ideas?
Go ahead, Avery.
Well, so my idea was that maybe it was searching for another person just in case another bird takes its perch.
That's a great idea. Yeah, maybe it's looking for somewhere else to perch on in case someone else comes. We have in the chat, someone put down hunting. That is excellent. Yeah, so black phoebes are in a group of birds called flycatchers. So as you can imagine from the name, they eat flies and flying insects. So they're catching insects. So that is often what birds are doing, what phoebes are doing when they're leaving their perch. They're going and catching a fly or some other flying insect and coming back. Although, yeah, if another bird comes by, they might try to leave and try to fight for that perch back again. So that is also something else that they could be doing when this is happening. But that behavior, when they leave a perch and come back when they have caught an insect, there's actually a name for that. It's called sallying. So if you know anyone named Sally, you can tell them, and I'll type that into the chat so that you know what that word is. Excellent. All right. Thank you so much for sharing your answers. And these are really handsome birds. You know, they're only here on the West Coast, really. We don't really get them on the East Coast. So that we're really lucky to have these guys, that black and white. I love those. All right. Our next bird was the house finch. So if you saw a house finch, you can raise your hand. I did see Natalie has a question that you have not noticed any black phoebes. Are they closer to the ocean? Well, no, they're usually actually in suburban areas and parks. Some people have them in their yards too, if they have a lot of insect activity there. So yeah, they're not usually near the ocean necessarily, but if you are by another body of water where there's a lot of vegetation too, somewhere where there are a lot of flies, I think you can think about that. So that's where you'll see a lot of black phoebes. So yeah, maybe try a local park, or if there is anywhere closer to the bay, maybe, where there's salt ponds and things, they also like to hang out there. All right, so house finches. So our question about house finches was that we have the males who are bright red, which you can see here. And then you have the females who are streaky and brown. That's this one back here. And why do you think males and females have these different colors? So we can think about that a little bit. And again, feel free to type into the chat or raise your hand and mute yourself. We have in the chat, I see to attract mates. That is a great answer. Natalie, you see finches a lot. That's awesome.
Right, Avery,
ahead,
you have, oh yeah, Avery, would you like to add something?
Yeah, well, I think house finches are bright. Male house finches are bright red to attract mates, and females are streaky and brown to camouflage so they can keep their eggs safe.
That is an excellent answer, Avery. That's exactly right. Yeah, so again, the males are really bright. They're trying to attract mates. They're trying to compete with each other. And then the females are more drab so they can camouflage. So that's excellent. Perfect answer, Avery. So it seems like, have a lot of people here seen a lot of house finches? They're pretty common in yards and parks. And what's cool is that they're native here to the West, especially, but their range has grown. They're actually pretty common in the East too. So yeah, and then the males get their red often from food they eat. So sometimes you'll see some that are actually yellow. So sometimes that happens with birds that are red. Some of them turn out kind of orangey or yellow. So that would be pretty special to see a yellowy house finch. All right, excellent. Now our next bird is the mourning dove. So that's this guy right here. So how do you think the mourning dove gets its name? And again, if anybody has any observations to share, please feel free to do that with us. So let's wait a few seconds, see if anybody wants to answer. How do you think the mourning dove gets its name? Nice, Tatiana, you saw them in a park. That's an excellent place to see them. They are one of the most abundant birds in North America, so they are pretty common, and you can see them in all kinds of habitats. Avery says, from its call. Yes, exactly. And how about I go ahead and play that call for you. I'm just gonna pull up my Merlin app. So here it is, if you can see it. And I'm gonna say the mourning dove. Yes, Earl, exactly it. Or yeah, its call sounds like it's crying, it's sad. So let's see if you can hear this. Yeah, so Fiona, the app is called Merlin. I'll type that in right now. So people thought that they sounded very sad. That's why they call it the mourning dove. It sounds like it's mourning, sad over something. Cool, excellent, great job, everybody. They wake up in the morning, yeah. That's another funny thing too, right? It also sounds like the morning, the time of day. And you can often hear them in the morning. Some people say they wake up to them. But they are also calling throughout the day too. So you can hear them pretty much anytime you see them awake. And Sandy, if you can clarify your question, go ahead and do that. I'm not sure what you mean by that. Okay, so our next bird is the American crow. And crows are really smart birds, so we were interested to see or to hear about what you have seen crows doing. So if you have seen a crow this week or even before, go ahead and share with us. And what else do you want to know about crows?
I can share a story that Serena and I had seen. We saw a crow with a fry in his beak. So it seems that crows also love fries.
I just got here, and I was wondering if you talked about the infestation, it seems, of crows. I live in Santa Cruz, and I've never seen so many crows in my life. I feel like I'm in the episode of The Birds.
Yeah. Sometimes it's interesting. We see huge groups of crows, or people call them murderers of crows. Yeah, I don't know if there's a particular driver for seeing so many more crows now than before, but they are doing well. They adapt really well to humans being around, but they also do well in the wild where they have lots of other things to feast on, whether that's other animals. And they do hunt. They eat like baby birds sometimes, for example, which is sad, but it's part of the circle of life. Yeah, I don't know if there's a particular reason why they're showing up in huge numbers in Santa Cruz particularly, but they're a social species, so they do like to hang out with each other, and they roost in huge flocks sometimes. So I think that does happen, every so often. I don't think it's uncommon to see that.
So you
Yeah.
haven't heard of an infestation, more crows in the Bay Area in general? And I know one reason they're particularly around my house is I have an oak tree, and they are feasting. They are absolutely feasting. However, anywhere I go in the city, they're there. They're just everywhere now.
They're opportunists. So if there's a source of food or shelter, they will be there.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything about specific increases in their population. I don't know if anybody's studying that right now, but maybe eventually someone could probably look into something like eBird and see if there's more reports of them compared to before. But yeah, I'm not sure. But yeah, again, just as Judy said, they are very opportunistic, so they've been very successful. They're probably also, it could also be a matter of less disease too, since maybe 10 years ago or so they got hit by West Nile and things like that. So maybe they're recovering from that too. I don't really know for sure. But yeah, we've had people see that crows drop nuts from the sky to be able to get the inside of the nut. Yes, that is one example of how smart they are. And you also notice that seagulls seem to have decreased, but crows have increased. That's an interesting observation. Yeah, Avery has seen them sitting on wires. Yeah, they like to hang out on wires and on roofs. Yes, exactly. They do watch for food. They're very good at, again, being opportunistic and trying to get food in any way they can. They do sometimes come to bird baths too. Yeah, excellent. All right. And then, yeah, a murder of crows is an expression for a group of crows. So just like some people say a gaggle of geese or a flock of birds, it's a murder of crows is another sort of informal way of referring to a group of crows. And what happened to the pigeons? I'm not sure. As far as I know, pigeons are still around. See crows every time you go outside. Yeah, they're very common. And they do like shiny objects. I know that some people have kind of befriended crows every so often, and the crows will bring people gifts sometimes. And sometimes it's just a shiny object in the environment. So yeah, they're very smart and they like to look at things that are different to them.
Yeah. They also like to enrich themselves in the environment that they're in. So if there's kind of a small obstacle or just a little game that they can do with their group, that's what they like to do.
Yeah. And then we had someone say they saw a crow bully a peregrine falcon. Yes, that does happen. And that's one of our later scavenger hunt questions too. That's called mobbing. Excellent. And then we had someone, Chin, shared that there was a new study that showed that crows are self-aware and know what they know, just like humans. And almost no other species has that kind of higher intelligence. Yeah, very cool. Yeah, so even though crows are common and sometimes they get a bad rap, they are very interesting animals, very intelligent. So they should be appreciated too. Excellent. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. So let's see what our next bird is. We have the Canada goose. So Canada geese are, many of them are migratory, which means that they move to different places in the summer and winter. So we wanted to know what you thought about why some birds migrate. And again, if you have any observations about Canada geese, please feel free to share those with us. I know that I tend to see them a lot at grassy fields, and sometimes you get so many of them and they're, eating stuff in the grass and they just look like a herd of cows to me, but feathered cows. Some people are saying that they're aggressive. Yeah, they can be. They're protective of themselves. They don't want to be bothered. Avery said, yeah, I see baby geese. Awesome. Baby geese are super cute. And it is another reason why geese can be aggressive. They want to protect their babies. So best to not get too close to them. Yes, yeah. When one has food, they can be aggressive. Absolutely. Yeah, best to keep your space. They're a big bird. Did anyone have any thoughts about migration? We are currently in fall migration. Yeah, to move away from cold weather. That's excellent. Avery?
I think they migrate so to get to a place where the living conditions are better. They can get good food and water, a safe place to have their babies, and, well, a safe place to grow up.
Excellent. Great, Avery. That's an awesome answer. And we also had someone say that they're instinctive. Yes, Jane. So those are all correct. And they do live in Canada, but they also live here in the US. So even though they're called Canada goose, they're really kind of all over. But yeah, excellent answers. So a lot of times birds are migrating to places where they can get more food. So here in the winter, maybe there's not enough food for some of these birds. So they migrate south for the winter where it's warmer and there's more food for them to eat. And then they come back here to breed in the summer where there is enough food because all the insects are coming back, all the fruits and berries are coming back too. So yeah, those are excellent. And it is instinct too. So a lot of birds, it's programmed in them kind of to migrate when the seasons change. And yes, Avery, I do have to agree that you are very bright. So, all right. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. Let's go on to our next bird, the turkey vulture, which someone said earlier that that was one of the best birds they saw this week. So turkey vultures play a really important role in the ecosystem. So we want to know if you can guess what it is. So we have a couple people saying eating mice. That's a good guess.
And Earl Fox family. Go ahead.
They eat dead carcasses and dead animals.
Excellent. Yes, they do eat dead animals. Yeah, we have a couple of people chiming in the chat saying that they decompose the dead animals. Yes, exactly. So that is the really important role that they play. They are eating dead animals. And, you know, that might sound kind of gross to a lot of people, but it's super important. So they're basically helping clean up the environment, right? We don't have tons of like dead deer around, and that's in part because they're eating them. They're helping to recycle those nutrients. And that's also important because it helps to reduce the spread of diseases too. You can imagine that if a dead animal is left out for a long time, they can start, you know, festering with diseases. So turkey vultures and other birds like them, like California condors and black vultures on the east, those all play that very important role. So yes, excellent. Everybody is chiming in with that too. Eating dead animals, stopping sickness, and yeah, fewer diseases in the air. Perfect, great job, everybody. And hopefully you've seen them. If you don't know what to look for, they often have this little red head, but sometimes it's kind of brownish if they're younger. And they're, of course, really big birds. Okay, so they're gonna be one of the bigger birds that we see that is pretty common. And their wings have white on the bottom. They're otherwise dark birds. And when they fly, they kind of teeter like a little seesaw. So that's a really good sign that you're seeing a turkey vulture.
I think we had a question from Maria, if she still had a question. Oh. Okay, no problem.
All right. Oh, we have somebody sharing. CJ saying, just went onto my deck. Sorry if there's a lot of background noise. I think there are some motorcycles coming by. So there was a turkey vulture staring down at me from the roof. It spread open its wings like it was stretching. Yeah, that's an awesome observation. I think turkey vultures will sometimes spread out their wings like that to sun. So it's kind of like sunbathing. Like if you have a dog or a cat, or if you like sunbathing, it's kind of like that. They're kind of warming themselves up. Any reason for the red markings above the beak? So I don't know if there is something adaptive about that red head. It could just be how they evolved. I'm not sure. You know, it's the color of their skin, I suppose. So unlike most other birds, turkey vultures have, yeah, they don't have feathers on their head. And that helps to reduce the amount of stuff that gets on their face when they're eating dead animals. So yeah, that's probably one reason why you're seeing that red head, just that they don't really have any feathers there. So yeah, otherwise I'm not sure if that red skin is indicative of anything else. All right, excellent. Great job, everybody. Our next bird is the Anna's hummingbird. So this is our most common hummingbird here in the Bay Area. And hummingbirds really fiercely defend their territories. If you've ever seen a group of hummingbirds together, you might be seeing that they are mad at each other. So why do you think they do this? Why do you think they are fiercely defending themselves against other hummingbirds?
Avery, would you like to go?
Yeah, so I think they do it because then they can defend their territory with their, so they can protect their eggs. And their small, with their small size, it would be probably hard to find food without getting eaten or getting in some sort of big problem. So they're defending their territory for for food.
Excellent answer, Avery. Yeah, food is a big deal for hummingbirds. If anybody else wants to share, please feel free. I see in the chat, because their eggs are tiny, they are super tiny, and they will defend their eggs if they can. Yes, excellent. We have people saying that they see a lot of hummingbirds come to their bird feeders. That's awesome. Very nice that you're providing food for hummingbirds. They do need a lot of energy. We have someone saying from the fox family, we have a lot of hummingbirds in our yard and they are always fighting about the hummingbird feeder. Yes. Hosanna is saying because they need privacy. I mean, that could be part of it too. They want their space. They don't want to be crowded. And Tatiana, yes, their nests are like the same size of a nickel. They are super, super tiny. They're very special to see. They're like these little tiny cups. So yes, those are all excellent answers. So hummingbirds are really tiny. They need to eat constantly, basically, right? They're eating a lot of sugar. So they will fiercely defend any food source that they find because they want that energy, they want that sugar. And maybe a lot of us feel that way too. Yeah, so they can be smaller than grapes, like their nests or their eggs, yeah. And Natalie's saying, our hummingbirds are snobs, they never like our sugar offerings. Oh no. Well, you do want to make sure that any sugar you're providing to them is always fresh. Make sure that it doesn't sit out for too long because it can go bad. But yeah, sometimes it takes some time for hummingbirds to find your feeders, so you just have to be patient too. And CJ asks, how many species of hummingbirds live in the Bay Area? That is an awesome question. So there is the Anna's. We get Allen's hummingbirds. I think sometimes we also get Rufus hummingbirds. So I think those are going to be the most common, but I think there are black-chinned hummingbirds as well, so that would bring it to 4. I'm trying to think if there are others that are seen relatively frequently. Other possibilities that I can think of are maybe calliope hummingbirds. I know that those are at least in Southern California, so they might be able to make it up here once in a while. So I think up to 4 reliably-ish, but that might also depend on the area. So I would have to look into that a little bit more. But we do have Anna's here all year long, so that's one you can always depend on for sure. I think the other ones are usually migrating in and out.
Hello?
Yes.
Yeah, I just have a quick story about a hummingbird, making it really quick. So I taught for a long time, and one day a hummingbird flew into our classroom. And all the students were very quiet, and we turned all the lights off and opened the door. We were trying to make it feel safe to fly away. And all of a sudden, it flew and landed on my shoulder. And I've never been that close to a wild bird in my life. And it just stared at me. I stared at it, and I said, I was trying to tell it, we're trying to help you. Don't be afraid. And finally it left. But I will never forget the hummingbird landing on my shoulder, and we had this amazing mystical communication. So that was my really amazing bird experience.
That is awesome. That's like out of a Disney movie. Yeah, I do find that hummingbirds are just magical little jewels. And you know, they're only here in North and South America. Nowhere else in the world has them. So we're very lucky, I think, to be able to enjoy hummingbirds all year round. And I see that Avery asked, how long do they fly for migration? Yeah, they can fly for a long time. I would have to check some of the range maps, but I know that a lot of them spend their time in South America. So that's, you know, thousands of miles that they're traveling sometimes. All right, awesome. Thank you so much, everybody, for sharing. I know that hummingbirds are a really cool species. And Natalie is also sharing a similar story about a hummingbird that bathed in the stream of water while you were watering plants with a hose. That's amazing. Yeah, they will do that. They'll bathe in when you're watering plants. They'll come to bird baths if you have them outside. Awesome. Well, I'm glad that everybody is really enjoying them, despite the fact that they can be bullies to each other. All right, our next species is the California towhee. So towhees, this is a type of very large sparrow that we have here. And sometimes they do peck at their reflections. So we wanted to know if this is something that you've ever seen and why you think they might do this sometimes. And if you have, of course, any towhee stories, please feel free to let us know. I'm seeing Avery, you have your hand up. Do you want to share?
Yeah, so I think they peck at the reflection because they may think it's another towhee and so they start pecking at it and try to communicate to their own reflection.
Awesome answer, yes. Yeah, sometimes birds will do that. They'll peck at their own reflection thinking it's another bird. Yeah, so they can be territorial. So when there's another bird there, they'll be like, what are you doing here? And try to peck it away, yeah. And CJ asks, CJ says, I'm not sure if I've ever seen one of those. Do they have any unique characteristics? That's a great question. So towhees, the really big thing to look for, so you see that they're generally just kind of brown and drab overall, but what is special about them is they have this red under their tail, this little red bit. So that's a good way to identify them. They are usually on the ground, kind of scratching around. So I see them a lot in people's yards and sometimes at parks in the grass. So they are bigger than a lot of our other sparrows. So if you've seen a house sparrow, these guys are probably almost twice their size. So they're a big sparrow. Yes, Judy says cinnamon butt. That's exactly what we're looking for when we're looking for California towhees. You can also hear them. They have kind of a metallic chip that they call, and so that's a good way to try to find them too. Let me see if I can find a recording of that for you on Merlin. Let's see if they have that. Towhee. Let's see. So hopefully you were able to hear that. It's just a metallic chip that we often hear from them. So that's often how I end up seeing them. So that's something to look for or to listen for. All right. That is our towhee. So again, they're a pretty common neighborhood bird, but they don't stand out too much. So you do sometimes have to spend some time looking for them. And again, often on the ground too. So if you have feeders, you might see them kind of hanging around on the ground instead of on the feeder itself. All right. And then our last bird species was the California scrub jay. So that is our resident blue type of jay. And scrub jays often store acorns throughout the year, but often during this time of year in the fall. So why do you think they are storing acorns? So feel free to share with us, or any observations that you saw with scrub jays. Now, someone saying for winter, yes. Excellent answer. Serena says that your mom loves these. Yeah, they are really beautiful birds. There aren't a whole lot of blue birds, so it is always special to see them. How long do scrub jays live? That's a good question. I don't know if I have an answer for that right now, but I can try to look it up really quick. Storing food, yes, that is an excellent answer. Yeah, and scrub jays are in the same family as the crow. So they are also another very smart bird. So they can store acorns in all kinds of places, and they'll remember where most of those are. Even if you change what the environment looks like, they'll usually remember a lot of those. And then for the ones that they don't remember, that they leave in the ground, sometimes those can grow into new trees. So they play another very important role in the environment that way. Oh, and we have somebody answering that they live for about 9 years, or that's the long lifespan that we know of. So thank you for looking that up for us and sharing. And Jane asks, how are they different from the blue jay? Like Canadian geese, blue jays are so aggressive. Yes, yeah, they are. I do find that, in my experience anyway, blue jays are probably a little bit more aggressive than scrub jays. With the California scrub jay anyway, they don't really overlap in range, since blue jays are more of an eastern species, and California scrub jays are mostly just here in California. But they are pretty similar in terms of other behavior. They'll come to birds, but they'll also hang out in forested areas. And yeah, both smart species for sure. So yeah, in terms of behavior, they're probably pretty similar. But if you, of course, they look different. With the blue jay, it has that crest or mohawk. Scrub jays don't have that. So, but they both do have that blue color to their feathers and the grayish as well. So yeah, so if you're here in California, you're seeing either California scrub jays or Steller's jays, which are the ones that are black. They have the black head with the mohawk, and then their body is blue. So yeah, we don't have blue jays here.
Yeah, and they're all in the same family, also with crows and ravens. So that's why they're all really smart.
Yes, exactly. Right, yes. Okay, awesome. Thank you everybody for sharing. Hopefully you enjoy your scrub jays if you see them. Yeah, they do eat the acorns later on. They're storing them for especially the winter when they have less food around. So they're storing them, they're caching them. That's the term for it. And I'll type that into the chat window so you know. It's called caching behavior. Ooh, how do you tell males apart from females? So I don't think that scrub jays, the males and females, look different. I will have to make sure, but I'm pretty sure they are similar looking. And yeah, that means that they aren't sexually dimorphic. So that's the term for when males and females look different. That's dimorphism.
Yeah,
do scrub jays mate?
Sorry, Serena.
Yeah, go ahead, Judy.
Yeah. Females are slightly grayer, just slightly grayer, so they would look like younger scrub jays. So they'll still have some blue, just not as bright as the male scrub jays.
All right, thank you, Judy. Yeah, and we had Nancy asking, do scrub jays mate for life? That's a good question, and I want to say no. There aren't many birds that do that, but I would have to double check with scrub jays. I don't think they do. I imagine that they usually have a new mate every year, But I would have to double check on that with their mating behavior, because it can be a little tricky sometimes with birds. And then we have Screen Watcher saying that I think that the females are leaders. Yeah, they can be. So that does sometimes happen with bird species. And I guess it depends on what you mean by leaders. Let's see if I can find any information really quick about scrub japing. But if anybody else has anything to share, please feel free. Otherwise, we can first move on to the next question, which was about behavior. Oh, and CJ asked, where do birds sleep at night? That's a great question. So oftentimes it's just in trees. They're just hanging out in trees. If you see, we talked about roosting birds a little bit earlier. So sometimes birds like crows or grackles and things like that, you'll see huge numbers of them roosting. So that's kind of them getting ready to sleep. And then other birds that migrate, they can also sleep on the wing. So that means they're half asleep while they're flying. It's kind of interesting. All right, so our next scavenger hunt item was trying to find a flying flock of birds. So if you saw that, please feel free to share. And you can also answer this question: what are some reasons that birds might fly in flocks instead of flying alone? So if you have any thoughts, feel free to share with us. You can type in the chat window, or raise your hand and unmute yourself. Yeah, to get away from predators, that's an excellent question, or excellent answer. And how do they not fall out of trees while they sleep? Well, that's a good question. I think a lot of birds have a really good sense of balance. I know that sometimes birds will even sleep or stand on a tree, on a branch with just one leg. So they just tuck up their other foot into their body to keep it warm. So yeah, I think it's just kind of instinct. Does anyone else want to share anything about any flying flocks of birds? I see, is that Avery? Go ahead.
So I think birds fly in flocks. So there are more birds to spot food, more birds so they can fight off predators, and so there are more birds to find a good home.
Awesome, yeah, those are all great reasons why birds might fly in flocks. And a lot of them, you can see in this picture, these are, I believe, European starlings. And here is a golden eagle approaching. So these starlings are all in a big flock. So by hanging out in big groups like this, they help to reduce the chances that any one of these will become food for the eagle. And again, like Avery mentioned, there are other reasons too. They might be all helping, trying to find a place or trying to find food together. Yeah, those are all excellent reasons why birds might fly in flocks. Great job, everybody. All right, our next scavenger hunt item were birds on a wire. So if you saw any birds on a wire, I know that somebody earlier mentioned crows, seeing crows on a wire. So feel free to share if you saw any. And our question was, birds can perch on a wire without getting shot. How do you think they're able to do this safely? And let's see, we have another comment in here. They arrange them into formations. Those formations take advantage of the changing wind patterns based on the number of birds in the flock and how each bird's wings create different currents. That's awesome. That's a great answer. Another reason why birds fly in flocks. Yes, it's to optimize that migration. We have Fox family sharing that they saw a peregrine falcon chasing away a flock of pigeons. Yes, peregrine falcons are bird eaters. They will totally do that. It's awesome to watch them hunt. And then Avery, you have something to share too?
So, like, I think that birds can get perched on a wire without getting shocked because I heard that there are two cables and so I think that they separate the cables so they don't get shocked.
Oh, that's a great idea. Yeah. So this one it can be a little bit of a tricky question. I know that a lot of times birds, they're only touching the wire when they're perched on a wire. And what I've read is that when an animal or us, anything touches two things, it could be a wire and like the pole at the same time, that's when you really get shocked too. So it's kind of that movement of electricity through the body. But I guess if you're only touching the wires, then you're gonna mostly be okay unless there's something wrong there. Yeah, so great, thank you, Avery. Yeah, their talons are, or their claws in some cases, right? Not all birds have talons necessarily, but yeah, they're just, those are the only things pretty much touching the wires. So as long as they don't touch anything else at the same time, they're usually okay. Great job. All right. Our next one is soaring. Soaring is when birds stay flying in the air without needing to flap their wings. How do you think they're able to do this? So here we have two red-tailed hawks soaring. Anybody want to share any birds they saw soaring or answers to this question?
I've been seeing a lot of peregrine falcons in my area.
Yeah, awesome. Peregrine falcons are super cool, and they are coming back. Their populations are increasing. They were once endangered species, actually. So it's great that they're doing well. And yes, wind. They are able to use wind to help soar. Yes, exactly. Hydrothermal air currents and good aerodynamics. Exactly. These are all excellent answers. Yes, so a lot of these raptors are using thermals, which are these kind of rising warm air pockets, and that helps raise them. So they don't have to use a lot of energy to flap their wings. They can just soar. Excellent, great job. And then our next question was mobbing, which is when a smaller bird often swoops or chases a larger bird. And why do you think they do this? So we had somebody share that they saw a crow mobbing a peregrine falcon. Yes. Did anyone else see anything like that, or do you have any answers for this question? And yes, peregrine falcons are the world's fastest animal, at least, yeah, especially when they're diving. They can reach up to 200 miles an hour when they're swooping down. Yes, we have the fox family saying territory or protection, exactly. Mockingbirds harass crows, yes, I've seen that a lot too. Yeah, so a lot of times, even though, there's a much bigger bird, a lot of smaller birds will kind of team up and, yes, bully and chase another bird so that they're trying to protect themselves, right? They don't want these bigger birds to eat their friends or their babies, so they will actually try to work together to chase them away. Yeah, awesome job. And then our next one was feeding. What is the bird you found eating? Did you see any birds eating? And if so, do you want to share? Yes, protection for the previous one. Yes, for mobbing, exactly. Maria, do you want to share?
I see a lot of these birds on Alamila Beach.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, you've seen a lot of these. These are called snowy egrets, and they are pretty common. You can see them, yeah. Natalie saw a crow, and whatever it was eating, they were striking it on a surface where they landed. Yeah, so we were talking about that a little bit earlier too. Awesome. And yes, lots of birds do eat insects. So yeah, yeah, you can see that birds eat so many different kinds of things. We have this one eating a fish. Some of them are eating bugs or nuts. So yeah, yeah, awesome. Thank you all so much for sharing. And then lastly, we have singing or calling. So if you saw a bird that you saw singing or calling, feel free to share. Here we have a spotted towhee singing. It's a little hard out. And what kind of information do you think birds communicate when they sing or call? Oh, and we saw crows eating worms, and their beaks and feet help them get food. Yes, exactly. Thank you all so much for sharing that. Yeah, the fox family says danger or back off. That's something that they can be communicating when they're singing or calling. Yes. Any other ideas anyone wants to share? Communicating to others. Yes, yes. Excellent answers. And Avery, do you want to go ahead too? Yes, like talking, exactly.
So I think the birds communicate to, like call I think males do this to attract mates, and I think other birds also use it to communicate about, like, if they ever found a place with lots of food, or if there's any predators nearby, or if they found a safe place to live and that they found other places.
Yeah, great job. So all of these answers are awesome. So birds are telling each other to back off. They are also communicating to each other if there's food. They are trying to attract mates. Yes, exactly. Those are all excellent. Great job. We have CJ sharing that there's a researcher who said that birds of the same species in different parts of San Francisco had different accents. Yeah, so birds can have dialects. It's pretty cool. And sometimes they spread throughout the population too. Yeah. And then let others know there's a predator. Yes, a lot of birds have alarm calls. That's a way that they communicate that there's some danger nearby. Perfect. Great job, everybody. So we are almost out of time, but I do want to invite you to share any sketches you had. You can email us that. You can kind of hold it up and show it if you want. Or you can, if you're on social media, you can also tag us. So feel free to share those with us. We do want to see what you're seeing and what kind of work you're able to get from observing birds. And we also want to know what other birds you saw. So it is about 1 now, so unfortunately we don't have a lot of time to do this, but if you want, you can go ahead and email us that information. We'll compile a nice big list of that. And if you have any questions, this is my contact information, slau@sfbbo.org. I'll also type that into the chat. And then again, if you want to be entered for a chance to get a sticker from us, thank you again for joining us. Please feel free to register on our page, which I've just dropped in the chat too. That gives us your contact information so we know where to send your sticker and how to get in contact with you. So again, thank you again, everybody, so much. And if you want to share anything, please feel free to get in touch with us anytime. Thank you again. We really enjoyed it, and we're really glad that you were able to see birds and appreciate them. So yeah, thank you again, and have a great rest of your Sunday.